Hello everybody, it's me GhostCritic. Thank you for joining me this Sunday for a comic book review video. And this week, I don't know whether it was because I was on holiday so I felt I had more time, but that doesn't sound right because I absolutely binged through my books this week. I picked them up on Wednesday, as you saw in last week's video, and I pretty much read them all in one night, which is very unlike me. I kind of do spread them over a few days, but there was plenty of great binge-worthy books to read this week. So we're going to crack on. Don't forget, there will be spoilers, so if you see a book that I hoist aloft and you haven't read it yet, please stop the video or just fast forward it until you don't see it on the screen anymore, and then come back to it and hear my thoughts and opinions. So you have been warned. And I'm kicking off not because it was the worst book, but because it came out last week. Just thought I'd throw this in and give you my quick thoughts and opinions on this, and it is Jordie Bellaire and Vanessa Del Rey's Redlands, issue number 2. Issue number 1 was intriguing. I believe I said when I reviewed the first one that it felt very much like the opening credits to a TV show, which is what comic books seem to feel very much like, especially in the Image world. I think a lot of writers and creators are looking for that stepping stone into the next media outlet, and that's obviously TV. And there have been so many other well received, for the most part, TV shows that have been based on comic books. I mean, we only have to talk about The Walking Dead and the success that had, and I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere down the line Jordie Bellaire doesn't get a call and asks if someone can make this into a TV show, because it definitely feels like it has that vibe. Now, in the last issue, we were in the 70s, if I remember rightly. We just kind of got thrown into this scenario, and now we've come right up to date. We're in this Redlands, Florida, and the time is now. So we are in the present, and we focus on the 3 women that we saw in the first issue, looking pretty much the same as they did back in the 70s. So that's already a signal to go, there's something very odd with these characters, and there has been kind of allusions to them being witches. Now, the thing with this book is it's kind of one of those ones where you're not sure who are the characters that you're meant to be rooting for. The men in this, for the general part, are not shown in a great light, and the women are seen as much stronger and more of a collective, and again shown in a better light. But at the same time, they're not doing very healthy, good citizen type things, especially the witches who are out in the woods or the fields doing blood sacrifices and the like, and it looked as though they were taking off a virgin teenager to do one of their blood sacrifices. But I like the idea that there's this serial killer that's taunting these 3 witches to try and catch him, and the story is slowly but surely developing and unfolding, and I like it. The artwork in here is kind of what you'd expect really from an indie. I calling Image an indie book now, it's a bit redundant, because they are so they're almost kind of mainstream now. They may not be getting the sales that DC and Marvel are, but they are certainly a big player in the comic book industry. Obviously, the only thing, and I don't know if anyone else mentioned this in theirs, it's these last pages of these red paintings. There's a lot of them, and I just was like, do we really need all these? It's a bit of a page filler. It is a $3.99 book, so it's not a cheap one to buy, and it just seemed to fill out the end of this particular issue to make the story kind of have a natural stop to be continued in the next issue. Okay, let's kick off with the new books that were out this week that I picked up. I feel so bad putting Blackeyed Kids, Beck, issue number 14 at the bottom of this stack, because there's clearly something about this book that is keeping me buying it. I don't necessarily think it's because of the story though. It has that atmosphere though, that kind of creepy, very dark. Again, we're talking TV. It feels very, very TV series kind of storytelling. But as I've said in numerous issues that's come before this, there's a lot of exposition, there's a lot of talking in here, and not so much of the story being pushed forward enough. But as I said, there's something about this book that won't let me drop it. The creepy Blackeyed Kids that we're not really sure what they are, where they've come from, what their real kind of end game is. They say they're not vampires. They don't like the V word. They're not zombies. They're not kind of ghouls or anything like that. And they only seem to be interested in the children. The adults of this world are of no use to them, though we have this main woman that seems to keep cropping up, who the leader of these Blackeyed Kids keeps stopping from killing, although he'll just kill everyone else, and she has some connection to these kids in the past, and memories keep coming in and out. She starts remembering little bits, but there's just not enough yet for us to go, oh, okay, nice little twist or something like that. At the moment it's kind of very like that instead of like that, and increasing. But as I said, there's something about the tension, the atmosphere, which is down to Guy Major, Marshall Dillon, their great art and colouring on here. And obviously Seisman Kudransky on here. They've certainly got this dark feel to it, and it's just not going to get dropped yet. I don't know what it's going to take, but at the moment, Blackeyed Kids from Aftershock Comics is still on my pull list. Issue 4 of Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man, certainly has its good and not so good moments. Chip Zdarsky is certainly kind of plundering the kind of 80s vibe of Spider-Man, kind of a la Web of, Amazing Spider-Man, all those books that came out back in kind of like the mid-late 80s. And kind of given that old school feel back to Spider-Man, where he is back to being the kind of the menace. He's more disliked than liked for doing, you know, all the good stuff, and really bringing J. Jonah Jameson back into it, and but keeping it feeling fresh with the whole kind of technology. Jameson now using kind of like a blog to get the word out that he still hates Spider-Man, which in and of itself is quite funny. Also with the kind of old school villains of Spider-Man, we've seen the Tinkerer at the start of this, and at the very end of this, the big reveal of a new villain is the Vulture. But on the downside, and I mention this every time, Chip really needs to hold back on the comedy. We get it. You can write the banter, the quips for Spidey, but it doesn't have to be every other line. There are serious moments in these issues, and you don't need to take that edge off by having a quip at the end. Have that moment for it being what it is, without having to have a cheap laugh at the end to kind of lighten the mood. It has its time and its place, but not on every single page, not on every single panel almost. I do like Kubert's artwork on this, and with Belair on colours. This is just a fantastic book for at least me to look at, but Chip needs to start editing a great deal with his dialogue, especially the quips and the fun and all that stuff. Okay, it's Bug, The Adventures of Forager, issue number 4 from DC's Young Animal range, and it's the Allreds doing all the storytelling and the art on this. I'm kind of thinking, should this be as high as it is on this list of my favourite comics from the last week? Because, I mean, the Allreds art I always love. They have a style of their own. It's very kind of left of centre. It's very kind of indie. It's got this kind of mod psychedelia side to it. But at the same time, the story is just too out there. It can get too silly, too confusing. I know that I've missed an issue out, but I really don't think it's a problem, or has caused me to probably think any different after reading this, because it's still just as confusing as ever. I like the way they're using a lot of the DC characters that we don't normally see in this issue. We've got Dead Man in it, and the Man Machine is in here. We see a lot of the New Gods again, but that's really about it, because the story is just so confusing. I'm not 100% sure what the end game is. They seem to be trying to stop something or get something, but somebody is making things difficult. But it's a very, very nice book to look at. It's got some crazy characters in, and there is that level of humour that just doesn't take it too far. So it's one of those issues, and I've read bits and bobs online that well, it's very confusing. How is this going to be a mini-series? Is it an ongoing? Was it to be cancelled before the Allreds got a chance to finish their story? I don't know, but for now, and given its solicitations that haven't exactly been regular, I'm quite happy to leave this on my pull list for now. Time for another DC issue, and that is of Super Sons, Tomasi Jimenez Sanchez Super Sons, issue number 8. And I do believe I said on Wednesday that this was the start of a new storyline, and I was wrong. For some reason I thought the whole Titans thing was a story in and of itself, but it has bled into this one, Planet of the Capes, part 3. And there are elements from the last 2 issues that are being played around with in here by Tomasi to great effect. It doesn't feel like thrown away kind of moment. He is connecting dots, he is picking up storylines, even if they were in the last couple of issues, which is good. As we saw at the end of the last issue, as they were kind of taking a brief rest from fighting, what was his name? Oh, I've forgotten his name. I'll find it as I'm going through here. But there's a dimension door in the back, and they're getting gradually sucked into it, and here we see them in this other dimension, and on a different planet, which is living. It's a whole living planet, and it keeps telling Robin, it keeps telling Superboy that something has been stolen, and it just attacks them constantly. And we see these 2 new characters from this planet, which is Hardline and a Big Shot. Great double spread there, very dynamic, very energetic and vibrant, as always from this book. But it's up to this now quartet of superheroes, I guess you'd call them, to find some escape from this living planet. and get a rest basically. And so we get the whole story of what this planet is all about, how it kind of goes through the universe and takes over planets by kind of basically covering the whole planet and sucking all the energy from the planet out of it. Again, it was all very fun, exciting teen kind of storyline, still with the whole Robin and Superboy antagonistic bickering, but we have someone in the background who is pulling some strings, moving pieces where they want to, and I just have a heap load of fun with this, and it looks like by the end of this issue they're in a rather precarious position, as this living planet is sending all its beasties and creatures to come and take Robin and Superboy. So it'd be interesting to see how they get out of this, but fun all the way. I love this book and will be on my pull list until Tomasi doesn't want to write it anymore and no one else wants to pick it up. Now, we had a bumper-sized issue of Doctor Strange this week, issue number 25, with a whole host of artists, but still with, well, not still with, a new writer, John Barber, on the writing duties, and did pretty well. I actually really enjoyed this, as we kind of have a tale that encapsulates like a flashback, memory loss, and the repercussions for it in the present, as Doctor Strange and his new kind of apprentice Zelma having breakfast, and then Zelma kind of goes all kooky and crazy, and you wonder what is going on for a while, because it seems to be affecting everyone, both inside and outside of Doctor Strange's sanctum, and we just get some great, if you can move that in a bit, hopefully it'll focus, some great characters created by all these artists of demons and spooks and ghoulies and the like, and it transpires that we have a villain from well, a kind of villain from the past of Doctor Strange, and this is where the artwork changes and we get Nolan on it, which is a great style for Doctor Strange. It feels very in keeping with past iterations of the character, and it certainly gives that feel of an old style storytelling through the artwork, a very nostalgic feel, which I enjoyed, and we kind of have to piece all the bits together, just like Doctor Strange has, because we see it is this young woman here who's grown up from, I guess, an adventure that Doctor Strange had previously, where this character was a younger girl and a demon had taken over her and using her nefariously, and it's the idea of Doctor Strange, you know, he wraps things up and it's all good, but what happens to those people afterwards? How do they cope without that kind of aftercare, I suppose you'd call it. But I really enjoyed this. It was a really fun read, mixing both present day and the kind of nostalgic field of Doctor Strange in years gone by. Great book, love the whole Marvel occult universe, and I hope that this book continues for a long time. I'm under no illusions that a new Doctor Strange title came out because there was the Doctor Strange movie, which I've still yet to see, but it'll happen. So whether the interest in Doctor Strange has waned since, and therefore the selling figures on this book might have decreased as well, I don't know. But if you're not reading Doctor Strange and you like the fun magic occult stuff, Doctor Strange is a really great book for you to get on board with. And I'm sure, given this is kind of like a one-shot deal story, there's a new story arc for you to jump onto in issue 26. Now we had a bumper-sized issue of Doctor Strange this week, issue number 25, with a whole host of artists, but still with, well, not still with, a new writer, John Barber, on the writing duties, and did pretty well. I actually really enjoyed this, as we kind of have a tale that encapsulates like a flashback, memory loss, and the repercussions for it in the present, as Doctor Strange and his new kind of apprentice Zelma having breakfast, and then Zelma kind of goes all kooky and crazy, and you wonder what is going on for a while, because it seems to be affecting everyone, both inside and outside of Doctor Strange's sanctum, and we just get some great, if you can move that in a bit, hopefully it'll focus, some great characters created by all these artists of demons and spooks and ghoulies and the like, and it transpires that we have a villain from well, a kind of villain from the past of Doctor Strange, and this is where the artwork changes and we get Nolan on it, which is a great style for Doctor Strange. It feels very in keeping with past iterations of the character, and it certainly gives that feel of an old style storytelling through the artwork, a very nostalgic feel, which I enjoyed, and we kind of have to piece all the bits together, just like Doctor Strange has, because we see it is this young woman here who's grown up from, I guess, an adventure that Doctor Strange had previously, where this character was a younger girl and a demon had taken over her and using her nefariously, and it's the idea of Doctor Strange, you know, he wraps things up and it's all good, but what happens to those people afterwards? How do they cope without that kind of aftercare, I suppose you'd call it. But I really enjoyed this. It was a really fun read, mixing both present day and the kind of nostalgic field of Doctor Strange in years gone by. Great book, love the whole Marvel occult universe, and I hope that this book continues for a long time. I'm under no illusions that a new Doctor Strange title came out, because there was the Doctor Strange movie, which I've still yet to see, but it'll happen. So whether the interest in Doctor Strange has waned since, and therefore the selling figures on this book might have decreased as well, I don't know. But if you're not reading Doctor Strange and you like the fun magic occult stuff, Doctor Strange is a really great book for you to get on board with, and I'm sure, given this is kind of like a one-shot deal story, there's a new story arc for you to jump onto in issue 26. We've made it to our top 3 books of the week, and at number 3 is The Kints Department H, issue number 18. And while this has kind of been, pardon the pun, treading water for a few issues, not necessarily pushing the initial storyline of the murder of Mia's father, Harry, this really kind of begs some questions, as while this does do another of the flashbacks, it does kick off when Harry actually died. At least I believe so, it feels like it, as he's having a conversation with Aaron through the underwater space laboratory, and they have this question because the whole story previously has been about exploration. We've seen them in kind of like the Amazon jungles, we've seen them in space, we obviously see them now at the depths of the oceans, and they have this conversation about what is the next kind of step of exploration, and there's this idea from Harry about what comes after you die. And it kind of puts a new spin on what could have potentially happened, and that this isn't actually a murder. Is this actually a suicide? Has Harry kind of really flipped over the edge in thinking, you know, if he dies he can now explore the afterlife? I don't know, but it certainly begs some interesting questions. It's not just a flashback that goes on here. We still have what is left of our core scientists from the deep sea laboratory trying to make it to the surface, despite the people on the surface trying to stop them because of the virus that is plaguing the human population up above. But it might not. They might not even have to stop them from getting to the surface, despite the fact that they could have a cure in their possession, because the sea wants to keep them back, wants to keep them under the water, as we get the kind of tentacled creature grabbing onto this submersible that's taking them back to the surface. And the power is now out. They have no power. They are on some sort of seabed. How they're going to get out of this, who knows? But the Kints, they write and they show just a fantastic story here. There's some great art going on. They're just some fantastic kind of, I don't want to say raw, because it is just Matt Kint and Charlene Kint's style of art. But it does have that kind of rough appeal to it. But I really like it. It gives it a kind of an edge, a kind of, I want to say, authenticity to the story. Really enjoy this book. I can only see it having a finite run. I'm not sure how much further we've got of this to go, but I will be unhappy to see this be gone from my pull list. Just missing out on the top spot, it's Descender from Jeff Lemire and Dustin Nguyen. It's issue number 24, and this is part 3. Yeah, part 3 of 5 on this Rise of the Robots storyline. And we kind of take a little detour from the main action that's going on with the UGC and the whole robots going through a kind of portal, who knows where. We drop back in on Driller, the big robot from very early on in the series, and his journey with this kind of ogre type character. He's taking him to the nearest kind of encampment so he can fix himself and then move on to wherever he's going. I'm not sure what his part is, but by the end of this we kind of see threads still coming together. What's great about this book, and it has a lot of characters in it, Jeff Lemire doesn't leave them behind for too long. He comes back to them and reminds us what's going on in their particular storyline, but it doesn't feel like it's separate to anything else that's going on. And as always, all these storylines are converging, and hopefully to a great crescendo and climax. But this is just a great kind of chance for Dustin Nguyen to do some great artwork here and show the kind of range he has, because this isn't so much the kind of sci-fi of this book, though it still has the sci-fi feel because it's on a very kind of natural planet. There's not so much of the kind of the robotics, the robots, the kind of big buildings, the architecture. They're going through mud and sand and woodlands and forests, and we have all these crazy creatures trying to stop them in their tracks. But it's a very heartfelt story as well. It's very strange. You feel for this robot who keeps saying he's a killer, and yes, he is a killer. He has killed, and it might just be initially his kind of partner robot that we saw that storyline from, a little flashback for him. But continuing on, you know, he has that killer instinct in him, which is what the human race are particularly worried about. But it's at the end, when they reach this town, this encampment, that all things kind of start coming together. Earlier on in the series, we had him escaping with other characters from Nish, which is a planet of these kind of crazy, again, ogre looking characters who want to get rid of all the robots and stuff, and who's on this planet as well, but the successor to the royal family of that planet, and he's captured Driller. So Driller is in for probably another world of hurt. We'll see how he gets out of that, but just a fine, great book. Love the sci-fi feel that is just unlike anything else that's out at Image at the moment. So what is my pick of the week? Well, if you've already seen my Wednesday's pull list video, you might have an inkling, you might have gone, well, where's that book on your list? Well, it's coming up very soon, and it's very strange because it's a book that doesn't come out very often, but when you do, you get a nice big bumper sized long read. It's very different from what really Image is doing anywhere else, and so it kind of stands out a great deal, and maybe then needs to work that maybe a little extra harder in being good, not because of the wealth of Image titles, but because it comes out only quarterly. So that's another clue. It is Headlopper. Headlopper and the Crimson Tower. This is issue 3 of 4 of this second mini-series from Andrew MacLean, with again the fantastic Jodie Belair on colours. That woman must be run ragged. She just must have a pencil, colours, whatever, in her hand constantly, even when she's sleeping. She seems to be doing everything at the moment and still doing an outstanding job. Now, it might seem strange that I've put this on because it is, well, there's no way around it. It is a very cartoony looking book. I've often said in the past it's like a cross between Conan and Adventure Time, and making it sound like that makes it sound very kind of twee and quirky, and it is quirky, but if you read it and you read the storyline, there's a lot of serious stuff going on in this, as we have what is left of the contestants, I guess you'd call them, because they're doing this kind of gauntlet of tasks set to get to the top of the Crimson Tower, take down the big bad, and get some sort of reward from it. And this kind of whittled down to these 4 or 5 characters now, and they've been going through these doors to get these eyes or kind of globes to get them onto the next stage, and they've had kind of feats of strength and such like to have to go through. Now there's 2 more doors left, and they kind of partner up, and each of them go in one of the doors, and it's this time that they have to kind of face their fears in a way, face the deaths of close ones to them, their fears of the kind of final battle, kind of parents' disapproval, all that kind of angsty stuff, but it's not done in a kind of oh boo-hoo woe is me way. There's a great deal of drama going on in here, and it's just so exciting and dynamic. There is a great deal of fun going on here. The paneling on this, the way MacLean and Belair pace this storyline, it's just fantastic, and I can't wait now for the next issue, which I'm going to have to wait a few months for, which I'm happy to do, but it's the fight with one of the big bads that have been overseeing this gauntlet. just a great book. And if you haven't picked up Headlopper, see if you can find the past couple of issues, or just to get the flavour of what you're in store for before they collect this in the next kind of trade. Get the first one, which was Headlopper and the Island, or A Plague of Beasts it was called. Get that. It's more of the same, but it's still good, it's still fun. They're just sort of all these twists and turns. Just a great fun book that I enjoyed tremendously this week. And if you want something that isn't so realistic, more fantasy based, but still packs a punch, Headlopper's your book. And that's it for this week. They are my books. Thank you for watching and taking the time to listen to me rant on and blather, blather, blather. If you like this video and you don't want to miss out any more, don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, hit subscribe. In the comments section down below, tell me what you thought of the books that I picked up. Did you have any differing views? That's fine by me. Let me know what you thought. And did everything deserve to be in the order it was in? They were my opinions after all, but you're entitled to yours too. Until next time, I hope you've enjoyed all your books this week. I'll be back on Wednesday with a new set of books on my pull list. Until then, bye bye.